I've often thought over the years that I've taught, getting close to 20 years now, I've often thought that, of course we all, well, most people I suppose, we all seem to want a kind of sense of freedom and well-being, or love, compassion. But whether we actually want to be free or loving is a whole other question. That we want to experience those things is one thing. That we want to actually be those things is very... If we want to be those things, see it changes our whole feeling about ourselves, our whole sense of ourselves. Or as the Buddha said really directly, his way of saying it was, look, there's no self to be. It's his way of saying, so what are you holding on to? You're holding on to a fantasy. So let go of it and things will be a lot better. You know, well, it's easy for him to say, right? I suppose we are only fully capable of understanding that we're holding on to a fantasy when we're no longer holding on to it. Because you notice what's absent. You know, I'm sure most of you people in this room have probably had moments where there's just certain kind of little traits about yourself that as the years go by, all of a sudden one day you just kind of look over your inner shoulder and go, I wonder where that went. Like, I used to react to that and I don't. When did that fall off? You know, when did that just drop away? You know, there's little pieces that do just kind of disappear. They often don't tell you when they're disappearing. They just sort of disappear. And then you notice them one day and you wonder, where did that go and on what day did it go? And, you know. So these moments of falling away do happen, don't they? And in some way, you know, we all are compelled into this space within ourselves, whatever that is for you. I mean, if you even meditate 20 minutes once in your life, it means you are compelled by something inside. There's something that's compelling. Even if it's an idea, there's something that's compelling. There's some reason that you do it. It's a pretty odd thing to do, actually. And we often meet that strange human experience of where we feel very compelled towards something and also repelled by it. You know, like a moth to a flame. That's been a symbol that's been used for a long, long time. You know, you want something, but you don't. You come close to it, then you hesitate. You're ready to let go, and then you hold on. You know, it's almost like a survival. It's instinctual. What is it that gets somebody at that moment of instinct where the instinct just goes, okay, and it just stops instinctually contracting, pulling back? What is it that gets that to stop? As far as I'm concerned, nobody knows. It can stop, and it does stop. But what gets it to stop for each person is so uniquely part of their own journey that you can't say it's this one thing. Each person has their own unique journey, even though there's so much that's universal about it, so much that's shared about it, so much that's common. But we all have our own very unique way of what gets us to any point in our lives. And so you can't really say what it is that allows that kind of letting go. Exactly. You can say what gets you in the orbit of it, what gets you around it. I suppose it's as mysterious as You could have taken 10 people that had the same sort of diseases that my father did, and you probably could have 10 different reactions to them. Who knows what those reactions would all be? I'm sure the one that happened to him was it was surprising to him as it was to anybody else. But I've often felt like one of the most powerful transformative forces in life is running out of time. You can run out of actual time, like my father did, physical time. You know something, you all of a sudden get some diagnosis. You can psychologically run out of time where you're just no longer willing to do it anymore. You just run out of time. I remember the great Zen teacher Dogen, who's well loved in most Buddhist circles, had that wonderful image about how to meditate properly. He said, meditate as if your hair's on fire and you have all of time on your hands. Do you know what I mean? And it all sounds like, well, thank you for that Zen piece of, ironic nonsense, but if you really take it into human experience, you realize it's, even though it sounds, so contradictory, that it's actually reflecting the spiritual impulse within us. Something is very determined. Something has a great vitality to it. Something in us is tired of waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Something in us knows that we can make immense leaps when we are out of time. There's a timeless element, within all of us, of course. And then there's also that element that is timelessly present. It's the part of you that then never becomes free. It's already free. It never enters into a different state than it is. It's already there. And these are paradoxically happening at the same time. It's like they're superimposed upon one another. And so we experience these qualities of being drawn, sometimes very powerfully, where we may even be fed up with time sometimes. We may get very impatient because the drawing is pulling very, very strongly. And at the same time, you can have that dimension within your consciousness that knows that everything is perfectly and unavoidably okay. And always was, and always will be. Even if it's a disaster. And sometimes, especially when it's a disaster. I think a lot of times people's first experience of this is when they run into a situation that's so intense, so where there's no time and you have to make a decision. You ever been in those situations? It's like almost like someone's life might depend upon it, and there's just no time. And all of a sudden, this capacity arises in you that seems to make the perfect decision. It's totally calm. It's totally cool. It's not in the slightest bit worried. And it just acts. And usually leaves you wondering later, where did that come from? Who's that person? It's like a foretaste of our deeper nature, kind of going like, geez, there's just no more time for your egoic nonsense. You see, we just something that's more important, right? Even in your doubt, your hesitation, it's some other force can just be moved immediately up. And so in a certain sense, our spiritual lives are a way of just speeding this whole process up. I've always thought of spirituality in its deepest sense as for the impatient. It's like, no, it's not good enough that I might just wake up in another 100 lifetimes. I'm sorry, it's no longer good enough for me. I don't want to wait. That's a long, long, long time. And maybe even worse than that, this might be the only one I have, and what if I waited for 100 lifetimes from now for me to fall into liberation? Boy, would I feel stupid, you know. You pass over, the Buddha's like, what were you waiting for? This was it. Don't worry, kid, you can let go right now. It's easy. Okay, I could prattle on, but I've done enough. Let's see what's on your mind. Oh, we all just go home and call it a night.